I don't understand why this is such a meme. 98 really was an excellent year for video games. Does It Joe is a concept or motif, and I really wish I could credit its originators, but I can't locate the original thread. I've been dredging through the HissTank forums, I've hit up the Internet Archive. Spongy Blue started one on the Floosh, but that certainly wasn't the first one I interacted with. But those threads are lost to the mist of the interweb, I think for reasons. That involves finding non-G.I. Joe things that work with your G.I. Joe action figures. In the Wrath of Cobra video, we discussed the comparative shortage of good G.I. Joe video games, something I've tried to develop several coping mechanisms for. And in the comment section of that video, several of you specifically mentioned a desire for a Joe RTS, something I've pined for since first playing CNC in '95. This is also an apology for video, as I feel like this game got a bit of rough treatment during its release. This, and several other games I've encountered, can kind of make you feel like you're playing a G.I. Joe game. In fact, if you're good...
They may even noir the glasses. Just for you.
Welcome to Does It Joe? Active Aggression. Active Aggression came out in 2015, and Eugen's customer base collectively soiled itself because it wasn't another entry in the Wargame franchise. Then the ones who were on board threw a wine fest because the 3-resource economy was too fiddly and the game was too hard to read and the balance was probably whack. So Eugen released the Reboot Edition, which simplified everything down to a single resource and upscaled all the units and rebalanced stuff and made it yet another CNC Generals light, which continued to not sell well. When I was in my early teens, I would have quickly told you that RTS was my favorite PC game genre. I spent my whole life collecting tiny soldiers and tanks. This was like a set of miniatures that played with you. Most fondly, my dad and I hot-seated Red Alert against the AI, things like that. Until we got a reliable internet connection and I learned that I am phenomenally bad at them. Experiencing a privileged, self-pity-fueled emotional descent for every setback in a match, quitting and pouting after every poorly traded combat encounter does not an esports athlete make, so I avoided multiplayer RTS. Then at one point, much later in my adult life, I set my jaw, knuckled down, and laddered up to silver in StarCraft 2. During this period, my blood pressure crested beyond its usual already too high. I spent my free time watching tutorial videos, and my interaction with my wife and kids were all short, snappy, and snarling. Then my dad pointed out, I thought video games were supposed to be fun. So I stopped doing that and went back to enjoying real-time strategy again. To quote my Acts of Aggression Steam review verbatim, I am a proud, casual, trash solo RTS player. I'm not here to convince you this game is a good RTS. Objectively, it's probably not. I'm not here to say if this game is fun or not, although I personally think it really is. I'm here to tell you whether or not this game joes. And it does. Oh boy, does it. This game joes so hard we're going to be at risk for saddle sores. Let's look at... Like any self-respecting RTS that released after March the 31st of 1998, Active Aggression features 3 asymmetrical factions. One of them, the United States Army, is fine. It's fine. But it's boring. It's essentially a retread of the US from CNC Generals. Sorry, it's specifically a retread of the same faction from Eugen Systems' previous active war games, which were, themselves, piggybacking off of CNC Generals. So, Humvees with upgradable loadouts and things of that nature. Frankly, they are quite fun to play with a unique playstyle compared to the other two, but the flavor doesn't match what we're discussing. Also, the United States Army's basic infantry unit is a Marine. Also, they deploy all of these. Which, to be fair, whatever major thing we do these days is typically accomplished by a joint task force. and Eugen is French, so maybe any combat unit under the Stars and Stripes is just referred to as the U.S. Army. Chimera, however, is a secret United Nations task force whose units are expensive and multi-purpose, preferring to send in a few extensively trained, super competent operatives with high-tech equipment. Huh? The Cartel, which is a stupid name, is a shadowy international terrorist organization consisting of influential politicians, high-ranking officers, and popular industry and media figures bent on world domination. Using copious amounts of the most exotic resources to field dangerous experimental technologies and waves of private military contractors who care about nothing but profit. Also, your liaison for mission briefings is a dark-haired femme fatale wearing glasses. Just saying. Super cool detail about this game. Every single unit is based on an actual real-world thing. They may have just been prototypes or even only design drawings, and most have been reimagined to a certain extent, and they've certainly been sci-fi'd up to make them more fun, but they're all real to some degree, and I find that incredibly charming. Now we can look at the insert. Well, one last thing. When I was looking up the faction trailers that Eugen posted back in 2014, the US and Chimera trailers were rated Peggy 12, and the Cartel trailer was rated Peggy 16. Regardless of how you feel about it, the rise of Cobra absolutely happened, and the accelerator suit absolutely existed. If you want a slightly more plausible version, I give you the Exo Soldier, because moving parts of a soldier's body faster and harder than he physically can himself is always a good idea. Remember when we slapped a Mauler's turret on a Wolverine chassis and called it the Lynx? Well, we've made some improvements with the Puma. It now has a passenger compartment that can carry 4 of your rowdy friends and mounts anti-tank missiles. If you find yourself pining for the deliciously 90s brawler with a stupid number of guns and missiles and Colonel Brekhoff in the turret, let me offer you the Panzer with a stupid number of guns and missiles, and it's from Russia. They're practically twins. I had a Thunderclap as a kid, which made for a killer playset and a kind of dubious vehicle. For a more affordable and practical option, let me sell you on the South African Rhino, which admittedly does not come with a driver that has a Weapon X helmet and thigh-high boots, but does have a pretty sweet muzzle brake. It doesn't get any more classic than the Joe Amphibious Personnel Carrier, which can fit a stonking number of figures but isn't known for durability. You might get more mileage out of an Israeli Namer, which also fits a stonking number of troops and is borderline unbreachable, but will not float at all. If your birthday guest list included one of those relatives who couldn't or wouldn't shell out for proper vehicles, then your Joes might have entered combat next to one of these. And if for some reason you have fond memories of the things, how about one that's stealthed and rocking flechette launchers? The APC might be classic, but if you want iconic, you want the only Joe vehicle that came with a soggy toothpick. You want the Vamp. But if you want something a scooch more German and for Clutch to not get sniped right out of his seat, you want a Fennec. CoverGirl won't have her coiffure mussed by missile exhaust anymore thanks to trading out those Wolverines for Buratinos. Got more missiles also. The Skyhawk one-man VTOL is ideal when you need an essentially disposable strike craft. But what if you wanted to bring a friend? The Ninja seats 2, cloaks, spots cloaked units, and can be upgraded with missiles. Wild Bill might mourn the lack of a Dragonfly, but our agents have uncovered that the design was originally based on the Bell AH-1 Cobra, so we replaced it with the Tigre. Tigre. It's French. It can be upgraded with missiles and upgraded with more missiles. It's Wild Bill approved. In keeping with our international theme, our fleet of Sky Strikers, with their anachronistic swing-wing carrier-based design that every Joe is a qualified pilot for, has been replaced with the PAC-90, which is, well, it's Russian. We don't have an X-19, but we have a Neuron. I've got no good excuses for this. It isn't nearly as cool as the Phantom, but it is stealthed. Troopers are expensive and are constantly demanding benefits. So we've paired them back to the more economical contractors. They provide their own equipment and are extremely affordable until they start requesting life insurance. On the subject of affordability, we've equipped our Vipers with a massive shipment of, shall we say, antiquated anti-tank weapons. The results have been satisfactory while being far more economical. One facet of our infantry that has seen a definite upgrade is our combat medics, sporting night vision goggles, a grenade launcher, and an attitude. The smart blue and red uniform is a bonus.
Fools! Now, Commander, I am pleased to report our agents have stolen the plans for the high survivability test vehicle, G.I. Joe codename, the Mauler. My engineers have modified the tank with smoke launchers, a potent railgun, and our experimental optical camouflage bricks. I give you the Scorpio! There is no denying the effectiveness of our assault system pods, but they have their shortcomings. They are fragile and require another vehicle to tow them into position. Mars technicians have successfully mounted an asp on an armored carriage and wrapped the gunner's compartment in armor. Although this necessitated removing one cannon for weight, the results have been impressive. Able to place a high-powered anti-air cannon exactly where it is needed, and with a targeting upgrade, it can even destroy enemy missiles in flight. Mars Industries has produced multiple variants of the high-speed Sentry for Cobra. But I believe we have outdone ourselves. Using the Scorpio as a test bed, we have perfected a higher caliber rail cannon. With optical camouflage bricks and an optional 30mm cannon with advanced targeting gear, feast your eyes on the Spectre.
Okay. No more voices. I'm sorry. I was having fun. In keeping with the railgun tendencies, we seem to have strapped a tiny one to the back of a ferret to use as an obnoxious sniper platform that carries two dudes. The Dreadnoks may have strapped a turbine and some cannons to a Trans Am, but the cartel have strapped flamethrowers and cloaking tech to a Cadillac, so you can road trip with your three favorite allies right into the back of the enemy base. The Fang was silly but fun. Here we've dropped the missiles and trackball cannon in favor of carrying capacity and scouting gear. The Fang 2 was also fun, but if you swap out the thumb wheel for, you guessed it, more stealth, and keep rocking the missiles, dig the Comanche. Did you ever lament the fact that Cobra was rocking a sky crane in the comics, but never had one in toy form? Welp, the cartel builds every single building with a sky crane. Knock yourself out. Perhaps literally. Have you ever had difficulty justifying the features of the Mamba? What if we traded for the more practical Super Hind? It doesn't split in three, but it does carry a school bus load of troops and can napalm an entire skyscraper of fools at once. And as the unwilling possessor of a southern accent, I frequently find video game southern accents repellent, and the Hind pilot is no exception. That thing could be weaponized. Several iterations of media gave Cobra big transport helos. So what do you get when you cross a Black Hawk with those all-encompassing optical camouflage bricks? A Shadow Hawk. We don't have an analog for the Rattler, which is a crying shame, but we do have a replacement for the incredibly derpy Liquidator. The almost equally derpy X-32. At least it's armed with anti-tank rockets instead of a limp squirt gun. Now this one is proper savage. Our Night Raven surrogate, the XB-70 Valkyrie, don't let it get shot down, it's painfully expensive, and the pilot is still a jerk. We're going to assign them mandatory sensitivity training. It blows stuff up good though. Gameplay-wise, as you can tell, the cartel excel in ambush tactics. In a stand-up toe-to-toe fight, cartel units will typically have to retreat from the army or Jomera, but you're never supposed to be in a stand-up fight. Your opponent should turn the corner of a city block and suddenly be confronted with... I really appreciate old school RTSs that don't let early units and infantry fall by the wayside, and the cartel has high tier upgrades for its troops that increase their hit points, reduce their cost, and the all-important life insurance that refunds half of their purchase price. I also love the force projection upgrade that lets the cartel build barracks anywhere on the map. Combined with the upgrades and already having the cheapest infantry of the game, as well as having more transport options than anyone else, most of which are stealthed, encourages you to create hotspots of hidden contractors, vipers, and punishers around the map like a terrible Easter egg hunt, culminating in the worst golden egg that is full of specters and low sats and not a single $10 bill. Even the comparative silliness of the resources you fight over, and the idea that even the good guys just plop a bunch of troops in a bank and profit, all make me feel like I'm playing specifically a Sunbow RTS. In my opinion, this game Joe's just fine. Thanks for watching. Jesus loves y'all.